you talk about, let's see, so you mentioned John Oliver. And so for folks who aren't aware, there's a recent segment that John Oliver decided to do on Taiwan, on the issue of Taiwan and status and recognition of Taiwan as a nation or not, which he acknowledges that the UN and the WHO don't generally acknowledge Taiwan as a nation, even in the segment. But it was a big deal that he addressed it. And so kind of following everything you talked about, why do you think there is this sudden intense fixation on Taiwan, especially from the West, especially from the US State Department and mainstream media right now? And what does John Oliver leave out of his popular piece? You mentioned how there is a bit of lacking nuance, and he actually uses up so much more time and speaks even slower than you, but he still manages to leave out some nuance. So yeah.
So I actually did a reaction video to the John Oliver segment with Taiwanese communist rapper Xiang Yu. Xiang Yu actually dug out the people who actually did the research for John Oliver's piece, and they're like your think tankers. One of them, Jessica Zhuang, works for the Project 2049, which is an American U.S. neocon think tank. One of them, James Lee, I think he is literally on the payroll of the Taiwan government, and so this is like who, I mean, and the whole bunch of NED adjacent organizations. So these are the source of John Oliver piece. But to address your question, why the recent tension? I think it's still a lot of one thing that he failed to address is to present it as a Chinese aggression toward Taiwan, but distract from the bigger picture. I already talked about his presentation of the massive Chinese flight over the Taiwan ADIA zone. What gets to mention is that was a response to the Chinese to the U.S. 7th Fleet with a combined fleet of Japan, Australia, UK. They sailed a huge armada through Bashi Channel between Taiwan and Philippines and into South China Sea to perform military exercise in South China Sea. That's what China was responding to. It wasn't even a message to Taiwan. It was a message to United States, because I think the Chinese leader understand correctly that the cross-strait relation is really between U.S. is really a matter of U.S.-China relations. And at this point, people say, oh, what about Taiwan? Unfortunately, right now Taiwan don't have too much to say, because all we hear is the side we hear from the U.S. State Department or the press release from the Pentagon, and for them it's useful to present this as U.S. is defending the freedom of Taiwan people from the Chinese communists, like they have been saying since 1950s. And but what we all know, U.S. don't really care about human rights of people in other countries. What we do know is that U.S. finds this as a wedge point to increase the U.S.-China tensions, to continually funneling increasing funds into the U.S. military industrial complex. U.S. Navy wants to have a 355 warship Navy. I think right now they're up to 300. They still want to build 55 more warships. These are the things that for them to justify the budget increase. So this is why we cannot have healthcare or better infrastructure in this country, because we need to spend all these gazillions of dollars to quote unquote defending Taiwan. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and in terms of, the US's history as a military power and an imperial power, we know there's extensive genocide, but even currently, as you spoke a bit about the Ryukyu Kingdom and Okinawa, So currently our tax dollars are being spent building a dangerous base in Henoko Bay in Okinawa. So we are also putting the Israeli Defense Dome in Guam right now and raising carbon sequestering forests in places like Guam and the Northern Marianas. So
And people
indigenous
in
Pacific
Okinawa,
Islanders
people in Okinawa don't want American military there. They have made it clear in the last 50 years that the majority of people on Okinawa want the U.S. military out. So all these pretensions, we are there to protect our Asian allies because our Asian allies want us there. This is a lie. Okinawan people don't want U.S. military on the island. Now, some people say, oh, but Japan want the U.S. there. Well, that's because Japan kind of treat the people of Okinawa as second-class citizens, and they didn't want the U.S. military base on their Japanese main island, so they stick the U.S. Marine base on Okinawa. And as I mentioned a little bit about the history of Okinawa, used to be its own independent kingdom, and it has never been treated by a government of Japan as an equal part of their territory. So yeah.